We need to survive another 100 days in the most deadly mine. Just look. Do you see that thing? What? Great. Just great. And this? Come on. You might be wondering why I'm even showing you these, and that's because with all of these creatures, we have to survive another 100 days. Can you imagine that? If you haven't seen the first 2 episodes, make sure to watch them first. You can click somewhere here in the right corner. But enough of this. Let's finally get into the video, because this one, this one was something special. We started our journey by searching for more iron. Our first big goal was to finally finish all the mechanical crafters we started working on the last episode. And the only thing we were still missing were 21 wrought iron sheets, which meant we needed a lot of iron. So I spent a long time mining, then crushing it, washing it and crushing it all over again. You know the drill if you watched the previous episodes, until we finally had all the raw iron ready. Diamond then took everything and threw it straight into the furnace. And while all that was processing and happening, I finally picked up all the dried bricks I laid down at the end of the last episode and placed them around our workshop area. And honestly, look at that, it's looking pretty. Finally have a floor. So, finally, some proper solid ground to walk on instead of random dirt and grass everywhere. With the floor finished, I headed out into the ocean to mine some nickel I had found earlier, while Diamond searched underwater for silver. We'll need both of these later to create black steel, the next tier above regular steel. So much steel in one sentence. After that, I spent some time gathering leaves and infecting them with worms, since infected leaves drop strength, which we constantly need for crafting. Once I was done with that, I headed back out to mine more copper. But meanwhile, Diamond was busy processing iron, trying to get all 42 ingots we needed. And 42 ingots of iron in this mod pack? You're probably the richest friend on the server with that, alright? I then made another trip to the lignite mine, because somehow we already ran out of it again. With enough lignite collected, I decided to gather more food next, but that plan didn't exactly last long. A zombie came out of nowhere and just look at that guy. Murdered me on the spot. So I grabbed a bunch of javelins and headed back to deal with it, but things didn't go smoothly. While running around near the mine, I accidentally, I don't even need to finish the sentence, fell into a hole and died again. At that point, Diamond had to come with me and help me kill the zombie himself. Thankfully that finally worked and I could get back to chopping wood. And just look at their massive trees. After filling my entire backpack with logs, I brought everything back home and stored it in an attic. And man, we have so much wood. Look at it. So much. Meanwhile, Evan was busy crafting all the iron sheets we needed to finish the electron tubes, the final component required for the adjustable chain gearshift, which itself was the very last part needed for the mechanical crafters. So while he worked on that, I started making something I desperately needed for the lignite mine. A vacuum. If you don't know, lignite creates deadly dust particles underground, making it almost impossible to mine there safely for long periods of time. The process started with crafting a comparator, then all the copper components, and finally the vacuum tube itself, but we're not even close to being done. I moved on to the vacuum bag. This mostly involved a ton of leather crafting, which took forever, but thankfully we already had the leather prepared. I just had to finish processing it into usable leather, and after that I started working on getting electro. And then hey, forgot to record. Just yay, forgot. Okay, no idea how that happened, but the OBS opened that app, but never clicked record. Next hour of gameplay, yeah, gone. Never recorded. Genuinely don't know how this keeps happening to me. Not the first time, if you're asking. Not the first time. So I did so much stuff too. The worst case scenario every single time. So while I explain what happened, enjoy some random clips from Diamond, because that's all we have. Okay? I'm gonna hate myself when I'll be editing this, because it's not gonna make any sense. But before I even realized I wasn't recording anymore, something much worse happened. We entered early winter, and we still didn't have our warm armor finished. And just look at the snowstorm. It's going insane out there. You can barely see anything outside anymore. So no way I'm going out in that. Thankfully, we were so close. At this point, all we were missing was one final piece of wool, meaning we mostly just had to wait for it to grow back, because finishing the insulated suit had become our #1 priority. Meanwhile, Eamon managed to craft us a black steel anvil. Look at that, guys. Hey, he's going. he's going through it. Another absolutely massive step forward in progression. Then I went out to kill one of the wolves that was stuck in a cave to get more leather, and that's also when I finally realized I wasn't recording. Yay! Almost an hour of progress is gone. Just like that. But during all of that, we finally finished our first full set of insulation. And of course, I was the one who took it. Did no work on that, but stole it for myself. After all the freezing snowstorm and suffering through winter, we finally had a proper protection, and with that we also completed one of the biggest goals we had been working towards since the last video. At the same time, they finally finished crafting all 21 mechanical crafters, meaning every single unfinished goal from the previous 100 days. Finally done! Look at us! Everything's completed, done with the modpack end of the video, right? No. While I was busy setting those up, I started working on the fisherman's trainer. Because of our food situation, it was honestly getting pretty bad. We had already eaten basically all of our apples, and I was desperately hoping this thing would somehow save. And the spoiler alert, it did not. And man, I can already see future me editing this like, nope, didn't work at all, you idiot. Just said that. You just said that before I read the script. Why am I going out of it? If I read the script, I wouldn't have said that. Now it's twice that. What am I supposed to do? I'm not reading it. Get back to it. But now it was finally time to use the crafters. Damon connected all 21 of them into our... I'm still laughing about that. Why do I keep coming out of script and telling myself to go back? I'm going crazy here from I can't even read the script. But now it was finally time to use the crafters properly, okay? Using the crafters. Damon connected all 21 of them into our create setup, and together we watched as they created our very first crushing wheel. Isn't it beautiful? Just look at it. Oh, look. It's just coming all together. And honestly, watching all those crafters move together was so satisfying after everything we went through. Oh, it was. Of course, we needed 2 crushing wheels, so I had to make more andesite alloy before we could finish the second one. But after a bit more crafting, there they were. Both crushing wheels finally completed. I was casually walking out of a mine, minding my own business, when this guy just absolutely charged into me out of nowhere. Like, what's your problem? Look what he's done. What did I do wrong? With that, I looked up for a bit, and Diamond stayed on to finally start rebuilding the entire create area. And honestly, it was a long overdue. He tore down the old setup completely. Nothing was left out of there. He replaced the messy sand floor with proper blocks so we wouldn't keep sinking into it, and reorganized everything so machines actually made sense instead of being scattered everywhere. On top of that, he expanded our power setup with massive water wheels to improve efficiency way beyond what we had before. And when I logged back in, I immediately headed out to mine a huge amount of copper, because we're starting a new project and it's going to need a lot of it. But of course, nothing ever goes smoothly in this world. So while I was heading out to the mine, the entire tunnel collapsed again. My shovel also broke at the worst possible time, so I had to go all the way back home, grab a new one, return, and finally clear out the whole mine properly. Once I got back, I processed all the ores, and the best part? Well, we no longer have to slowly mill everything like before. Now we can just throw it straight into the crushing. It's so much faster and efficient, and we can even get more resources from it. After everything we've been through, this alone already feels like a massive upgrade in progression. Told you in the intro, we are progressing fast this episode, alright? With all the copper processed, we finally moved on to our next mission, the spout. Another create component used for pouring liquids directly onto blocks, and something we're going to need very soon. Diamond crafted the wolf while I worked on building the main body it attaches to. Meanwhile, Diamond also processed more iron to create compressed iron ingots and crafted cast iron rods, which I used to build a siren. And then upgraded it into full bedrock iron. We probably won't ever need it, there hasn't even been a proper storm yet, but in this world, you can never really afford to be unprepared. Diamond also created a nature's compass, which lets you locate a specific biome of your choice. And honestly, this thing took way longer than it should have. Diamond had to sift dirt for what felt like forever just to get the 4 rubber saplings needed to craft it. But in the end, it finally came together. This is actually huge for us, because we've been stuck needing sulfur, and sulfur only really comes from volcanic areas. So we immediately checked the compass, and yeah, the nearest volcano is 5,000 blocks away from our base. And there is absolutely no way we're doing that in the winter. No chance. So, what we will probably have to do is make a plane. There's a plane in the game, and we will need it. But that's far into the future, alright? Making a plane? Hey, that's a pretty hard thing, alright? So that idea is getting postponed until summer, which means we need a completely different plan for progression right now, and that plan is blue steel. While Diamond starts working towards that, I decided to begin preparing something much more immediate, a portable drill, which should massively speed up mining. I started by crafting all the required components on the anvil, but of course, I quickly ran into the same problem again. We were out of iron! So that meant another mining trip, another round of processing, and another cycle of turning raw ore into usable wrought iron just to keep progression moving. And while I was waiting on all of that, I also started working on an iron flask, a much better alternative to the fragile jugs we've been relying on since basically day one. Something that frankly we should have made a long time ago, but we still didn't have enough iron, and on top of that we were completely out of lignite, the fuel we rely on for the smeltery. So I finally crafted the vacuum and prepared to head back into the lignite mine. But of course it wasn't that simple. Turns out we still needed filters for it, and those can only be insulated using a vanilla iron anvil, which itself has to be made from cast iron. So before anything else, I had to go back into the mines again to gather more iron, process it, and finally turn it into the cast iron, just to unlock the next step. While I was at it, I also crafted the iron flask at the same time, and honestly, huge upgrade. This thing holds 2000 millibuckets of water instead of just 100 millibuckets. It's basically a lifesaver for long trips now. With that, I finally made the vanilla anvil, installed the vacuum filters, and headed back into the lignite mine properly. This time it was actually amazing. We could just vacuum up everything as we mined, which made the whole process way cleaner and faster, and did not poison me all the time. Once we got home, I finally had all the materials needed for the steam engine and crafted the drill itself. It looks insane, but there's just one problem. We can't actually use it yet. We still need water and lava to power it, so it's going to have to wait a bit longer before we can really test it out. So instead, I moved on to crafting copper pipes, which we'll need for feeding liquids into the spout we built earlier. Diamond then hooked everything up, connecting the pipes directly into the spout, and just like that, we finally got it working. Our next goal is to finish blue steel, something Diamond has been slowly working on in the background whenever we had enough materials. While he was handling that, my job was to keep everything else running. So I started by making more boiled water, because we were constantly running out, and at the same time, Diamond was crafting more andesite alloys since we had completely drained our stock. With both of these resources running low, we headed back into the iron mine together to get more ore. And of course, like always, it was never just mine iron and leave. We had to deal with cave-ins, supports, and way more digging than expected before we finally got a decent haul. Once we returned home, I started crushing and processing all the iron while Diamond completely rebuilt our washing setup in the create area. This was actually a huge step, quality of life upgrade. Instead of running back and forth to process ores, everything is now more centralized and way more efficient. And then finally, it was time. With all the materials ready, we started producing blue steel. First we made cast iron double sheets, then processed them through the blast furnace into pig iron, and from there everything slowly came together into the final alloy. It took time, but eventually we had it. Diamond even managed to craft a blue steel pickaxe for me, and honestly, it's insanely fast. Look at that speed. Feels like we've officially stepped into a new tier of progression. With blue steel secured, Diamond also crafted a bucket and immediately upgraded it into a proper Minecraft bucket, which is going to be crucial from now on, because now everything comes down to one simple objective, and that's finding lava. We made ourselves a shield and set out on a major exploration, starting by digging a narrow one-block shaft near our base, straight down into the unknown. From there, Diamond took over and spent a long time carefully navigating deep cave systems, searching for lava while constantly dealing with mobs, dead ends and unstable terrain. Eventually, after what felt like forever, he found it, and a lava source deep underground. With that in place, we were finally able to produce obsidian and construct a nether portal frame. But even then, neither of us wanted to go in yet. Instead, we shifted focus to the next bottleneck, filling tanks, which require a huge amount of copper. Conveniently, during our lava excavation, we had already stumbled across a copper vein, so we doubled back to mine everything we could, processed it and smelt it into ingots. Once the copper was ready, I crafted the basic fluid tank and gradually upgraded it into a large filling tank. I also built an iron drain to support the set, continuing work towards a proper large-scale liquid processing system. You might be wondering why we even went through all of that tank setup, and the answer is simple. It's all to finally make use of the drill. We need proper fuel handling first, which is why we built the filling tanks in the first place. The final tier of those tanks requires 12 sturdy sheets, and those are made from obsidian dust. So I headed into a nearby cave system and mined a large amount of obsidian, brought it back home, crushed it into dust, and then processed it into sturdy sheets by combining it with lava and pressing it properly through the setup. After that, I assembled the full set of fuel tanks across all tiers. We filled one tank with water and the other with lava, and Diamond immediately ran a test, and yeah, it actually works, and the drill is already slightly faster than our blue steel pickaxe, even with this early setup. You can see it here, it's slightly faster. It's nothing great, so no idea if it was better to do it, but it works, okay? So now the fuel system is finally done, we can actually ask the real question. Why did we go through all of this? Because the next goal is huge. We're finally starting work on the create drill, and if you look at the recipe, it looks absolutely terrifying at first glance. But instead of trying to do everything at once, we're breaking it into stages. That's the only way we're making it through this craft. And the very first step is simple. Gather all the brass ingots we're going to need. For this, we're going to need approximately 6,000 millibuckets of brass. This much! And as you already know, brass is made from 10% zinc and 90% copper, which means we need roughly 1,000 millibuckets of zinc and 5,000 millibuckets of copper, for those who can't do simple math. Yeah, really proud of myself for this one. Sounds simple, right? Except we don't have anywhere near that much, so we split up. I went out to mine copper, while Diamond headed off to find zinc. Wish it was zinc what he was mining, but you'll see later. Before leaving though, he also crafted himself a copper jetpack, which instantly completed one of the quests, and honestly made his whole trip a lot faster and more dangerous at the same time. After a long mining session on both sides, we finally came back with everything we needed. Then came the part that always takes way too long, processing it all. Crushing, washing, smelting, you know the drill, just stack after stack. It felt like it would never end, but eventually we finished it somehow, and then we finally combined. I still can't believe how much copper we ended up with. Just look at it, almost 10,000 millibuckets of copper sitting there and waiting to be used. Look at the chest, it's full. With all the materials finally gathered, I was ready to start the alloying process, but then I couldn't find the zinc anywhere. The material Diamond was mining the entire time. So I checked Diamond's footage and turns out he wasn't mining zinc at all. He was mining tin the entire time. Yeah, that happened. So I had to head back out again and actually find real zinc this time. I can't believe. Look at that guy, just mining tin instead of zinc. Look, so stupid. So after a long trip and way more mining than expected, we finally got enough, brought it home and processed it properly into usable zinc. And while I was doing all of that, Diamond was already preparing more mechanical crafters, because it turns out we're still going to need even more for the final setup. So once everything was finally sorted, I could start the actual alloying process. Copper and zinc went into the forge, and brass finally started coming together in serious quantities. When it was done, I had a massive pile of brass ingots ready. From there, I crafted a brass tunnel and casing parts, while Diamond finished assembling the rest of the mechanical crafters we were still missing. And just like that, we finally reached the point where the real progression begins. I feel like I keep putting this part into the script every video, but this time, it's for real, okay? I mean, it's for real every time, but this time, it genuinely feels like we're doing something, okay? Whatever. From here on out, we're no longer just surviving or repairing. That's such a stupid line. No way I put that in. Yeah, I'm not reading that. We're slowly building the drilling machine. Whatever, I'm just going right in it again. We're slowly building the drilling machine, piece by piece, item by item, until the entire thing finally comes together. I then started turning all of the brass into sheets, because we were going to need a lot of them for the next phase of the build. After that, I crafted the spout itself using a valve and a fluid tank, while Diamond worked on producing all the brass blocks needed for the final receipt. At the same time, I also started making sturdy sheets by pouring lava over obsidian dust and processing it multiple times until it hardened properly. Slowly, all the pieces started coming together, and eventually we reached the point where only one thing was still missing: the mechanical drill itself, the centerpiece of the entire machine. Diamond began working on the drill head while I handled the body components, but there was one big problem. The drill head required wrought iron, and we still had to wait for it to finish smelting. So, while the bloomery was running, Diamond prepared the entire mechanical crafter setup for the final assembly, and I moved on the next component, the diamond drill head upgrade. For that, we needed wrought iron, and Diamond created which is made by crushing actual diamonds. Thankfully, we still had a few diamonds left in the chest, so I immediately processed them and started preparing the parts. We still couldn't finish the craft without the wrought iron, but at least everything else is ready to go. After that, I crafted the brass mechanism for later recipes, while Diamond finally finished processing the wrought iron. Then came the long forging session. Diamond worked the anvil non-stop, shaping every part we needed, while I stood nearby assembling every piece by piece as soon as it was ready. First came the mechanical drill itself. Then I crafted the geologist's pickaxe, which we'll use to locate ore veins for the drilling machine later on, and finally Diamond completed the diamond drill itself. Hey, Diamond completed a diamond drill. I'm getting lost in this. Oh my. Getting lost. Diamond drill, diamond, whatever. At that point, everything was finally ready. All the components, all the crafting, all the preparation from the past episode had led up to this moment. Wow, that sounds perfect. We could finally craft the drill. Now, for the funny part, we still can't use it, because we don't have electricity. So for now, this massive drill is completely useless. Useless, yes. But don't worry, this is all part of the plan. Our next goal is the metal press from Immersive Engineering. This machine is going to change everything. No more spending ages on the anvil making sheets and plates by hand. This thing will massively speed up our processing and progression. Of course, it's another huge multi-block structure, so our journey started with the alternating dynamo, which will generate the power needed to run it. While Diamond focused on that, I shifted my attention to crafting an engineer's workbench used for making all the smaller components required for the machine. First, I needed treated wood, which is made by soaking lumber in creosote oil, something we had plenty of thanks to our coke oven constantly producing it, while making charcoal. With the treated wood ready, I crafted the engineer's crafting table and finally upgraded it into the engineer's workbench itself. And by this point, Diamond had already finished the massive craft for the alternating dynamo. With both of these done, I started working on the rotation speed controller, which will help us regulate the power generation. I'm not even going to explain the full crafting process because it was something. It was an absolute nightmare of microcrafting. Never doing that again. But in short, it went something like this. In-case chain drives, adjustable chain gearshift, brass chasing, sequence gearshift, precision mechanism, and finally, after all of that, we had the rotation speed controller. Now it was finally time to gather every block needed for the metal press itself. So, redstone engineering blocks, done. 2 conveyor belts, done. Piston, done. Engineer's blueprint, done. Heavy engineering block, done. 2 steel scaffoldings, done. And a million other parts that I didn't even show because of how boring they were. So, with all that grinding, we finally had everything. And just like that, Diamond assembled the machine. Our very own metal press. But of course, there was one more problem. There's always a problem. We still couldn't use it. No, still can't use it because the press needed a blue steel press head, which required blue steel, which we don't have. So, after even more alloying, smelting and waiting around furnaces, we finally got enough blue steel and crafted the press head. And with that, the metal press finally came to life. Look, it's beautiful. It's working. To wrap up the day, I also randomly completed one of the oldest quests in the entire pack. So old, first chapter ever. Making cheese. So yeah, we have cheese now. Enjoy. And before logging off for the day, I headed back into the lignite mines once again, because somehow we were already running low on fuel. I mined it, stored it, and just like that, I ended off the day.
The next day started with Diamond finally connecting the drill to our water wheel setup. To make that happen, he focused on crafting all the pipes, while my job was to make the mechanical pump needed to move the fluids around. I also crafted 6 more large water wheels, giving us enough power to run the massive drill properly. With that done, I left the rest of the setup to Diamond and started working on our next major goal. Something we want to finish before summer arrives. A plane. And if you look at the receipt, you'll quickly realize this is not going to be easy. It requires a ridiculous amount of materials and several machines we don't even have yet. It's one of the main reasons we spend so much time building the drill in the first place. Hopefully it can keep up with the resource demands. For now though, I start with the LV accumulator, one of the components we'll need later. The recipe looked simple at first. 3 wrought iron ingots, that's pretty easy. 3 creosote treated planks, that's also pretty easy. Then I got to the lead sheet. And of course, we had completely ran out of lead, so I headed into the mines, gathered more ore, processed it, and forged it into the sheet we needed. With that finished, all that was left was making the redstone acid. After a bit more crafting, we finally had it. So just like that, the LV accumulator was completed. One more step towards building the plane. Oh, and if I forgot to mention it, the drill was already running, and just look at all that iron coming in. Finally working. It's automation. So while the drill was running, Devon took over the next big project, building the biplane. He started crafting all of the required components one by one, making the boiler, blast furnace, copper coil, and the double steel sheet needed for the final recipe. Combined with the LV accumulator I had already crafted earlier, we suddenly had everything we need. And just like that, we finally crafted ourselves a plane. But now we can't actually use it yet, as every other machine we do, so we still need a way to produce the fuel required to power it, and we'll also have to build a proper runway before taking off, so this probably something we'll tackle in the next episode. With me back on the server, Diamond informed me that our next objective was completing the electricity chapter in the quest book, so I immediately got to work on the redstone resonance converter. As you can see, it required a lot of copper and iron, while Diamond focused on crafting the second machine needed to complete the quest. The only problem was that after building the plane we were basically bankrupt, so we had completely drained our resource stockpile. There was nothing left in those chests. So, while our drill continued mining more copper for us, we spent our time processing everything in broadband. And while we were at it, we upgraded parts of our create setup, making the entire production line significantly fast. Just look at how fast it's spinning. Pretty insane. So once enough iron has been processed, we could finally continue crafting. I started by casting all the copper and zinc into ingots before turning them into the sheets required for the recipe. After a bit more crafting, I assembled all of the remaining components and finally completed my machine. With that finished, I switched over to helping Diamond. His machine needed an absurd amount of iron, and I mean a lot. So, while he prepared the materials, I focused on crafting all the smaller components we'd need later. After processing even more iron, we forged the sheets, upgraded them into double sheets, and finally assembled the last block required for the quest. And with that, the entire electricity chapter was completed. This also unlocked all of the immersive engineering machines in the quest. The funny thing is, we already had some of them built, so to complete the newly unlocked quest, we literally just broke the metal press and coke oven, placed them back down, and completed the quests. Progression's a little weird sometimes, so with all of that completed and only around 10 days left before the end of the episode, we decided to go for one final major upgrade, the crude blast furnace from Immersive Engineering. For some reason, there isn't even a quest for it in the quest book, so this time we were completely on our own. I started by crafting all of the fire bricks, which meant yet another trip for kaolinite. Multiple times, may I add. And when I say another trip, I mean a lot of kaolinite. I needed a massive amount of fire clay, which I turned into fire bricks, fired in the kiln, and then processed even further into the materials required for the furnace. After that, I combined them with mortar and seared bricks to create all of the coke bricks we needed. And while I was buried in crafting for what felt like hours, Diamond was off on his own adventure in the nether. Look at that guy, he's running around. Well, there he gathered ether, whatever it's pronounced, which would be needed for the final blast brick rest. Collected all of the magma cream required as well. Once we combined everything, I finally, this took forever, crafted the blast bricks, and with that, we had everything needed to build the furnace. So, I assembled the multiple, placed the final block, and just like that, the crude blast furnace was complete. Of course, there was one small issue. This thing produced an absolute ridiculous amount of pollution. So, before we even thought about using it, I crafted 3 separate filters, one for every type of pollution it could generate. Because, trust me, when this thing gets going on, it was absolutely nutty there, so this was needed. Kind of like, you hitting the subscribe button right now. Yeah, I mean, if you made it this far into the video, you clearly enjoyed it, so why not subscribe? It's completely free and it helps me out a ton, so that's also needed. Well, anyway, with the filters installed and the furnace ready to go, we finally had access to a much faster way of producing steel and a variety of advanced alloys, a machine that will save us countless hours in the future. And with only a few days left before day 300, it couldn't have come at a better time. With the final big goal completed and not enough time left before day 300 to start anything major, I decided to go back and clean up some unfinished business. And with unfinished business, I mean there were still a few quests sitting in the very first chapter of the quest book, the Stone Age chapter. Back when we started, these quests required resources that felt impossible to get, but now with our new automated drilling machine constantly bringing in ores, they were basically free, so I grabbed everything I needed from the piles of resources our drill had gathered, processed the materials, and got to work. First I crafted kettle, completing the coffee quest, then I moved on to the cast iron grill, which was surprisingly easy to make now that we had all of the infrastructure in place. And finally, I crafted the cooking pot. It took a few more materials than the other two, but compared to everything we've done in these last 100 days, it was basically nothing. And just like that, 3 more quests were complete. 3 quests that had been sitting there since the very beginning of our journey. Slowly but surely we're getting closer to fully completing the Stone Age chapter, but by this point, there wasn't much time left. Day 300 was approaching, and for the first time in a long while, there wasn't another massive project waiting. So, I did what I always do at the end of the videos. I just climbed up, looked over everything we had built, and watched the sunrise one final time. 300 days ago, we spawned into one of the hardest Minecraft modpacks ever created, with absolutely nothing. Since then, we've built a home, survived winter, automated mining, mastered steel production, and just made so much stuff. The sun just rose. Day 300, look at that. We did it. We survived another 100 days of Hardrock TerraFirmaCraft 3, bringing our total survive time to, guess what, 300 days. So, thank you so much for watching them. I'll see you in 400 days. Bye.